And please don't be shy. I know the Bible says first shall be last and last shall be first, but I want everybody to be last, so sit the hell up front. Yeah, no cheap seats. All right, you can sit there. Got me a gavel. We're now in order. Uh, I was telling people that I've been working with this ethnic council for years, 20 something now, right? Yeah, 30 something now, yeah. And every ethnic group has the same complexes about itself that every other ethnic group does, like we all start late. Put them together and you get real late, and that's where we are. But this is compounded by security issues downstairs, because you all know you're a threat, so you got to be careful here. But those of you who got let in mean that I think it's okay to start. So we'll get going. Listen, let me just say a couple words about the council. I'll say a little bit more later. Started in 1994, Bill Clinton, and I'm so thrilled that we have with us Marilyn DeJacobi, who was our first ethnic outreach. And we were to fill a void in the party, but also in the White House in terms of outreach, because everybody had a desk, but we didn't. There was desks for every group considered, but what were called European and Mediterranean ethnics, Irish, Polish, Italian, Eastern, Central European, Greek, Arab, didn't have a place to sit, didn't have an access point, and didn't have a way to come back to us. So the Clinton very wisely understood that these votes are critical in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And so the idea of creating outreach, and Marilyn was just amazing at calling all the time. President Clinton's going to be in Pittsburgh. Give us 15 people for a clutch at the airport. Going to be in Reading. You got 10 people who can come and say hi, etc. And it made a huge difference for our communities. We've had a bit of a drought in terms of that kind of outreach. But I'm pleased to say that I think we're gearing up for this election, because we know we got to win. We got a presidential candidate who gets it and a vice presidential candidate who's lived it and does it every day. And so we're here with the council to talk about the role that ethnic Americans play. I remember Clinton framed it as family, community, and opportunity. It's our story. It's each one of our stories. My father was an illegal immigrant, came in the 20s, got citizenship through amnesty in the 40s, and his son worked with the vice president in the 90s and got appointed by President Obama to a commission I have it on my wall, those parchments, and it's like, it's my story. It's the American story, but it's the American story that each one of our communities lived. And we not only want it for ourselves, but we want it for every other community that's coming now. We don't come in and close the door behind us. We come in and we say the door needs to be open so everyone gets the shot at being American. And not only being American, but changing America in the process. You know what? I hear these guys say, we're going to make America great. It's already great. We're doing pretty damn good. Think about our history. Think about each one of our ethnic communities, where we started and where we end up today. And you do not, my mom said one time in an interview with Good Morning America, she said, I do not want for me what I deny to others. I do not want to deny for others what I've gotten for me. I remember when I was a kid, I was into Ayn Rand. It's a juvenile thing to do. I call it, it's a sort of adolescent aberration, right? Everybody goes through it. Except Republicans never grew up, right? They're still there. But I was sitting there lecturing her on government taking money from us and government this and government that. And she said to me, if it weren't for Social Security, my father had died, survivor funds, you would not be in college right now. And if it were not for the New York State scholarship you got, you'd be home working right now. So do not deny to others what you take for yourself. And so we do not deny to other groups, whether from the Americas, from Africa, from Asia, wherever they come, what America meant to us. That's who we are, and that's what makes America great, is that we share the benefits of America with everybody else. And we want the party to know that, recognize us, include us, be a party for us, and broaden the coalition to be what it always has been. We were the building blocks. You go into Pennsylvania, northeast Pennsylvania, it was the Slovak and the Ukrainian and the Lithuanian and the Irish and the Italian and the Hungarians. They're the ones who built the Democratic Party in the coal regions. We can't abandon those folks. They're us. They're who we are. And that's what we've got to, that's the message of our council, is we're part of the Democratic coalition. We need to have the Democratic coalition include us. We cannot separate our people from the Democratic coalition. So, with that said, we've got a bunch of folks here. I want to start with the Lieutenant Governor of Connecticut, Susan Bysiewicz, who spoke to our session in 2020 virtually. This is her first in-person appearance. And thank you, Susan. Maureen, I should have actually let you do it. I'm sorry. She's a friend of Maureen.
There you go. All right. Well, dzień dobry, everybody. My name is Susan Bysiewicz. If you want to pronounce it the Polish way, it's Biszewiec. I answer to both. When people start saying Susan, I know they're calling me up to speak. But I am this distinctly American combination. My mom was the child of Greek immigrants that came to America in the early 1920s, and my dad was the child of Polish immigrants that came to Connecticut about the same time. And I grew up on the farm in Middletown that my Polish grandparents started, and everything that I have achieved in my life came from the work ethic that I learned from both sides of my family. And I am a Democrat because Democrats are the ones who are responsible for uplifting both sides of my family. So my dad was a World War II veteran, and growing up on his farm, we grew potatoes and cabbage, surprise, that he never thought that he would be able to go to college. But when he was drafted into World War II, he became a pilot and a bombardier, and he was part of the greatest generation of Americans who stepped up. They were ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And he flew 53 missions. He was stationed in Italy and was bombing targets in Germany and Yugoslavia. And he made it back to our country, and because of the GI Bill, he was able to go to college, and that opportunity never, ever would have been available to him otherwise. And both sides of my family talk about how when FDR did his drives through main streets in Connecticut and Enfield, where my mother was from, and Middletown, where my dad was from, everyone would go to see Franklin Roosevelt, and both homes had pictures of him because he saved the country during the Great Depression and helped us win the war. So that's why I'm a Democrat, and I'm very proud of my Polish American and Greek American heritage. In Connecticut, people who are Polish American make up the third largest ethnic group next to Irish and Italians. And, you know, when I first ran for state representative and I was door knocking in my district, part of it was Middletown, part of it was Middletown and Durham. Those are farming communities. Middletown's a little more urban. I can't tell you how many people that I came across who were Polish American and who were very proud of the fact that I was running for state representative. And then I was very lucky because when you're Polish American, you come from a really big family, and everybody was invested in helping me win. And I was able to serve 3 terms in our state legislature, and I was chair of the elections committee, and our secretary of the state decided to run for Congress, and I thought, hey, I'm running the committee, the elections committee in the state legislature. I'm a business lawyer. I know about all the business filings that are filed in the Secretary of the State's office. I will run for that. And I decided, because of my experience running as a Polish American for state representative, that I would make it a point to do outreach to the Polish American community. And in doing that, I actually met relatives that I had never met before. And here's how that happened. So New Britain, Connecticut is a place kind of like Chicago. It's smaller, but it is a place that is heavily Polish American. There are several very large Polish churches there. So all my supporters made sure to put my beautiful red and white Susan Bysowitz signs all over the city. And relatives of mine who lived in New Jersey that I had never met before were in New Britain visiting friends, saw my signs, and were like, wait, that's our name. Who is that? And they're like, oh, that's Susan, and she lives in Middletown. And they actually went to Middletown about 30 minutes away, knocked on my dad's door, and we realized that they were cousins of my father's that we had never met before. They had recently immigrated from New Jersey. And as a result of that, our family, after I won the Secretary of the State's race, decided to celebrate by going to Poland and visiting those relatives that we had not met before. And it was very cool. We visited them in a very small Polish town called Tukowice, and they took out of a paper bag letters that my grandmother had written in the 1930s. It was really quite something. So I would just say to any of those aspiring public servants and politicians out there who are hoping to run, for office, please do outreach to ethnic communities. I will say also that with this big Polish last name, it's not obvious that I am also a very proud Greek American, but I also, when I was running for Secretary of the State at the time, did a lot of outreach to the Greek American community. So that was so very important. And in our state capital, what we do is we have celebrations for about every ethnic group you can think of. So we celebrate Polish Constitution Day at the state capitol in May, which I help organize with our Polish American caucus in the state legislature. We also celebrate Greek Independence Day, Pakistani Independence Day, go down the list. So if in your state capital there's not a celebration for your heritage, make sure you organize a flag raising or ask legislators in your state who are from that background to help you do that, because we are a much more diverse and inclusive state as a result of doing that, and it gives visibility to many important ethnic groups. So there's a lot of reasons to celebrate our diverse heritage. It certainly helps for politics, but it also shows people in your state what the beautiful mosaic is in where you live. So I am happy to take questions or talk about whatever anybody's got on their mind, but I will also just say how excited I am to be here to support our future President of the United States, Kamala Harris, because this is the moment when she's going to break through that glass ceiling and make us all so very proud of the diverse country and the amazing opportunities that we have in the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Lisa Ann Walter. She is an American actress, comedian, and television producer, best known for her roles as Chessie in the housekeeper in the romantic comedy film The Parent Trap, and Melissa Simonetti on Peabody Award-winning ABC mockumentary sitcom Abbott Elementary, for which she received a Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Ensemble in a Comedy Series. Lisa, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I won Celebrity Jeopardy. Thank you very much. Thanks for bringing that up. I'm here for one day, less than one day. I go back to work on Abbott tomorrow morning, but I'm thrilled to be here with all of you. And there's nothing more important in my life than being here and making sure that our next president is one that will support policies that protect all of us. So I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Lisa Ann Walter. I am a postmenopausal woman. I'm guilty. And as such, I have a few thoughts. I am away from not just my show, but my postmenopausal life. Sadly, it's not being a grandmother / babysitter for the simple reason that I have 4 children, but they're all just too selfish to give me babies so that I can fulfill my postmenopausal societal duties. My 3 boys are busy with their careers and their cats, and all of them have cats, and my daughter is busy getting her PhD. So instead, I am here because I am a lifelong political activist. I started when you still had to sit at a table. Some of you might remember these days when the rolls were a big book, and you had to go through the book and look up people's phone numbers. Young people, this is what we did. And then we would dial phone numbers, and then I think I might have been 10 when I started, would ask people if they intended on voting for Victor Crawford or Barbara Mikulski or somebody, and they'd be like, why is a child calling me? Because I always knew that it was important. I always did. I'm from DC, or right outside of DC, and we went and marched for all of the things that mattered on the weekends. We marched for civil rights. We marched against the Vietnamese War. We marched for gender equality, to pass the ERA, still waiting. We did that like other families would go and do Little League. So it's sort of in my blood. And I am beyond psyched to be supporting in this election the most qualified, compassionate, intelligent, fierce, McDonald's working, same girl, non-felonious, Brett Kavanaugh questioning. She may not be menopausal, but we'll wait for her to gain that added wisdom, and then that will be fantastic. Kamala Harris. And I think this is really important to all of us to continue the search for what America looks like that our ancestors had when they came here. Whatever generation you are in this country, somebody was in another country saying, I want to get there, usually. I am a second and third generation immigrant, second on my father's side. I think that 23andMe said that I am 24% or 23% Northern European, 74% Southern Italian, that's the Sicilian, and the rest is North African. So you find out a lot of things with 23andMe, but there's a lot of lore. We all have stories that our families tell us about who came over first and why they came over. There's a great story on my father's side. He was Alsatian, which, if you don't know, is Alsace-Lorraine in France, and they speak German, really. My father was a NASA scientist. He was a physicist, and we lived in Germany for a couple of years when he was on loan to the Max Planck Institute. So we used to go visit my relatives, and they would tell us stories about some of them were still alive. My uncle Alice, who, when the family got on a boat right before World War II broke out, they were leaving to come to America, my father as a baby. And my uncle was on the docks waving his fist and saying, let those goddamn Germans come, we'll kick their ass, in German. So the construct of who we are is all very kind of muddled. But when he got here, his father, who was a butcher, made sure that he had a wonderful education. He went to the Bronx High School of Science, where I think 4 of his classmates from his year got giant awards. I'm not sure, did any of them win? I think some of them won the big one. But anyway, that's some of the lore around it. The stuff around my mother's family was even more intense. My mother's family came from Sicily when people were dying of starvation. And I didn't learn this until I did Ancestry. I've done all the things. So I did a little piece for Ancestry.com, and they really researched some stuff about the family that I didn't know. Some of it I did, like that both of my great-grandmothers came from Sicily. I knew that both of my great-grandfathers died building the subways. They died of the 1918 Spanish flu because they were underground in close quarters and, doing physical labor with people, and people died. So both of them did, and then both my great-grandmothers raised children. On one side, the great-grandmother had 4 kids, and she had to put them in an orphanage for a number of years while she took in piecework, which was, when you sewed arms on clothes and stuff, until she had enough money to get them out and continue to raise them. And then both my uncles went and fought in the Second World War and, contributed to the country. My mother, the other great-grandmother, had 12 children, all of them born on the kitchen table in her tiny apartment on Thompson Street in New York City, in Little Italy. And that was an apartment I knew very well because all of my aunts and uncles, great aunts and uncles, still lived in that building. They all took apartments to be near their mother. It was wild. And we would have Sunday dinner there when I would go to visit. So, where am I? So I knew this layout of this apartment. It was absolutely tiny. There was one bedroom, a living area, and a kitchen with a table that my great-grandmother would set up on Sundays for Sunday dinner. When I did the piece for Ancestry, I brought my children. I brought all 3 boys. My daughter was busy getting her PhD, you know. But I'm just bragging. But my boys came with me, and they saw for the first time the size of this apartment and how people lived. And I said, you know, we used to put not just the 12 kids and the mom, but all of the other cousins and relatives around the table for Sunday dinner here. And they couldn't believe it, that that's how people lived. And by the way, lived without any safety net, no Social Security, no pension, no money coming in, except for my 13-year-old grandfather who shined shoes on the Staten Island Ferry. And that's how he supported his family. And then he became a salesman for a tool and die company. He did physical labor there first, and then he started being a salesman when he was about 16. And then he drove a Lincoln. He made good money, but he gambled it all away on horses. So that happens too. But here's the thing that's important. We hear these stories and of overcoming adversity, of people working really hard for a piece of the American dream. My grandfather on my dad's side was a butcher, so his son could go to the Bronx High School of Science so he could become a physicist for NASA and go all over the world, and they loaned him out to the UN. My other grandfather shined shoes on the Staten Island Ferry so that my mother could be the first in her family to go to college, which girls did not do. Italian girls did not go to college in those days, and she did, and she became a teacher, and she was the smartest person I ever met. In fact, she's the reason I won Celebrity Jeopardy. She knew more about more useless information than any human being I've encountered in my life. When I talked to my kids about what their experience was when they came over here, they were like, I can't believe it. The thing I learned that I didn't know was that one of my great-grandmothers was an orphan. She was her parents either passed or she was the product of an unwed mother. But she came from an orphanage. At 13 years old, they put her on a boat, and they sent her to America to an aunt who lived in New York, who we hope met her at some point in Ellis Island or somewhere. But I was blown away that a child would go on a boat across the ocean to try to come to America. And then, as my kids were wondering over that, I said, well, isn't that what we see people do every day? Don't people fight against all odds to try to make it to America? Because we are a country of brave people who hope for better. You know, there's a joke that the first generation kills themselves doing manual labor so that the second generation can go to college, so that the third generation can take improv classes. Sort of true. Sometimes, like in my case, it works out, come TV stars. But I can't do anything with people keep thanking me for being here, and I'm like, where else am I going to be? Yeah, if we don't all, and you are doing it already, so thank you, all of you. If we don't all put our efforts into electing a slate of candidates who will fight for those of us who have nothing and those of us who have some. If we don't elect those candidates who fight for all of us, then we have somebody who doesn't really care about anybody except themselves. I have this note, and I just want to read it to you because I didn't have time to memorize it. But as I said, I've been involved in politics for a very long time, and there have been election cycles that I've gotten excited about in the past. I don't think I've ever been more excited than this election cycle. And I'm not talking about desperate, because I felt that over the last 8 years, sort of scared and desperate, and I'm not that. I'm excited. I'm galvanized. Because it's never been more clear of a choice, and I think that's true for many people in the country. We can vote for someone that sees you as nothing but a mark, a chump, and whatever policy he pushes is a grift at your expense. And if he's telling you that there are tax cuts, he doesn't mean for you. He means for his rich buddies, and by the way, it's not really for them. Because if they get tax cuts, then they owe him favors, or they get a membership in his golf course. So in the end, it still benefits him. So we can have that, where all of his friends get richer, but it's certainly not for you. Or we can elect Kamala Harris and Democratic candidates up and down the ballot who will fight for gender equality, reproductive rights, freedom from gun violence, outlawing price gouging, canceling strangling medical debt, protecting Social Security, and the things that helped our people when we got here, so that a new generation can experience that. So for our parents, for our children, and for the next generation of deserving immigrants dreaming of becoming Americans, that is why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. My mom was on television on Good Morning America in 1996, before that election. Guy said to her, "You're voting for Bill Clinton and you're a Catholic. Why are you doing that? He supports abortion." She went on and told the same story that you did about Roosevelt, about when they came as immigrants, what welcomed them. And she said, we wouldn't have gotten through the Depression. We wouldn't have gotten through the war. We wouldn't have gotten through all the periods that followed. And it was Democrats who supported civil rights. It's Democrats who, whatever. And the woman said, "Yeah, but abortion, doesn't that bother you?" She said, "Oh, yes, it bothers me." And the woman said to her, she said, "You go to Mass every day. How do you deal with it?" She said, "I talk to my priest about issues like that. But for a president, I want somebody who lifts up people who need a helping hand." The woman almost fell off her chair. I got a note. My mom got a note from Bill Clinton. He did that sort of thing. And he said, "You helped me get elected. Thank you." And she saved that until she died. It was just precious. But thank you for that. It's exactly who we are. A helping hand to those who need a hand up. And never forgot what we got belongs to others as well. It's our heritage and our tradition. Thank you so much, Lisa. Let me... When Lisa talked about her 23andMe, I did it too, because I wanted something interesting in my family. I figured my mom and father were both Zogbys from the same village. I don't have six toes, because we actually did the family tree, and it's very separate. But I wanted to see something. It was something interesting, you know? So I did 23andMe. Son of a bitch, it came out 100% from the Mount of Lebanon. So I was telling my grandkids, and my granddaughter, who has a very sharp wit, I said, "Looks like I'm purebred." She said, "No, you're inbred," and left it at that. I am as proud of my Lebanese heritage as can be, and I'm so proud that one of our community is here, served as the Secretary of Health Human Services in the Clinton administration. We've got a lot of Clinton crowd here. And went on from there to be President of University of Miami. That was her position. Then went on to do others. And Donna Shalala is just an extraordinary woman. And she's spoken at some of our events before, but I wanted to, she wasn't expected to be here to speak, but can you come up, Donna, and say a few words? Thank you. And I remember we gave you an award one time, and I talked about my heritage, the issues of undocumented, and you had somebody in your family too.
Yes.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Yes. I'm happy to be here, Jim. It's nice to meet you, Maureen. I'm a Lebanese American, a proud Lebanese American.
I'm very excited to announce our next speaker, Congressman Mike Quigley. He is from the 5th District of Chicago and proudly represents my district, so I can attest to his great outreach with the ethnic communities from personal experience. He's just done a phenomenal job. He meets with the ethnic communities. He has a real affinity for the groups and makes himself incredibly accessible in a time when a lot of politicians are standoffish. He is really hands-on and works with the community. So Congressman Quigley, thank you for being here today.
Good morning. I am fascinated with the American dream and people's perception of it and how it interlaces with immigration, because it touches everyone in one manner or another. This morning I was asked what I thought of what was happening with the nominees' campaign, and I said the closest I can recall to this is 2008, right? Every campaign's different, every person's different, but you know, when you raise $200 million in a week and you have 58,000 volunteers in one day, yeah, this is different. And it also reminded me, as we talk about people's life history, of when I talk to students, they say, well, give us some advice. I say, well, who might give you advice? But I tell them the same story my staff's heard a million times. It's a true story. A friend of mine ran for Congress. Now, the theme of this advice is you're going to have to learn more from your setbacks than your victories. And you're going to be measured more in your life by how you handle your setbacks and your victories. And I was reminded that a friend of mine ran for Congress and lost 2-1 here. And so I was a county commissioner, he was state senator. We went to breakfast. I said, now what? And he didn't have a great answer. And I said, now the infamous line to him, well, there'll be something for you someday, because that was State Senator Barack Obama. But I'm reminded of that because of his extraordinary family history and our nominees' extraordinary family history is this negative that we hear from the Republicans about this in the most ugly way possible. But it's really the strength of our country and the extraordinary fabric of our history. And we all have it. And, you know, for me, it was my great-great-great-grandparents came from Ireland in the potato famine. They went to Canada, got tired of that, made a left turn, came here illegally, undocumented, and set up a new life. Now, their grandson fought in the First World War. He was a hero. He suffered from poisoning, mustard gas, affected him the rest of his life. Came back to Indiana after the war with his wife, and in the middle of the Depression, as poor as they possibly can be, he was a handyman for farmers, living, you know, a very tough life. But in the middle of that, they decided to adopt a baby out of an orphanage that had been abandoned as a newborn. That would be my father. So, were it not for all those and the extraordinary character of people like that, life changes. Kamala Harris is the daughter of immigrants. Her story is reflective of so many of us and provides a real opportunity to unite us in a common American story. We all share so much of the same background, and it's important. You know, when her parents, her father was born in Jamaica, her mother in India, they were idealistic graduate students who came to the U.S. in pursuit of change, but not only to pursue success and dreams back home, but to make a difference and to use their voices to help advance the rights of black and brown Americans. But perhaps, as we will soon see, their greatest contribution was raising their daughter to be the woman she is today, a district attorney, a senator, the state's U.S. attorney, and the president soon, right? And that they were part of all that, just as my parents were able to see their son be sworn in the United States Congress. But how this all unites us is I actually have my dad's adoption papers, and it strikes a chord with what we're seeing in the ugly side of this campaign. The application asked if they would like a boy or a girl, and they said, and they wrote, just any child that we can love. I love sharing that story because it highlights what we have in common, that so many of us descend from immigrants, that all immigrants come to this country in search of a better life, that we and our children, the words of Walt Whitman, may contribute a verse to this great American story. And I read that application in a hearing in Congress when my colleagues across the aisle were fighting against the right of LGBTQ plus people to adopt, because my grandparents knew better, that all that mattered is they just wanted a child to love. So I'll shift that in my second part of this and in closing. We also share the commonality of a history where so many of our families fought to save democracy for our allies. And we recognize that after the Second World War, we, with our allies, built the liberal world order, that democratic order that exists today and is challenged today. Yet I read that Senator Vance says Ukraine is not worth fighting for. That President Trump has said the war would be over his first day and is apparently best buddies with the world's leading autocrats, including and especially Putin. So I think it's important when we recognize that Kamala Harris, Vice President, is a strong supporter of defending that and that history of why we built that order and why it is so at risk today. Because when this convention's over, I'm planning to crisscross the country and talk to anyone that will listen of why that matters to all of us, that it's in our interest, it's our history, it's our fabric of who we are as a country. Will we isolate ourselves from the rest of the country? My favorite speeches by presidents are, ironically, always their briefest ones. We're reminded that FDR's last inaugural, he said, "What we have learned is that the welfare of our country is dependent upon the welfare of countries far away." The ball game comes this November. Everything, all those who gave their last full measure of devotion during the Second World War, all of what they did, our allies and ourselves, all that we've built since then is at stake. And it ties in with our immigrant history and recognizing that we're interwoven with the world, that we actually need each other, that it can't just be ourselves in the most selfish way possible. So there's no better way to express that than to do what we've done so far in a campaign that had 3 tasks: unite the base, ignite the party, and reverse the polls. We're 3 for 3. Now we're going to take that fuel, that energy, that momentum, and move forward, because the rest of the world is indeed watching us, not just this week, but particularly in November, for all our parents and grandparents did and what it all meant to the American dream. We must do this together. Thank you so much.
There are, we've heard from Polish Lieutenant Governor, Lebanese American former cabinet member, Irish congressman, and an Italian American actress. That's who we are, and more than that as well. And I think about that a lot because I remember during the Clinton campaign in '96, then campaign manager Craig Smith said, "There's lots of ways to cut the cake. Some people cut it seniors, this, you know, whatever." He said, "We're going to cut it multiple ways, including by ethnicity, because that's who people are." When I came to the Harold Washington campaign in the '80s, and I remember Harold Washington said to me, he said, "Everybody looks at Chicago as black and white." He said, "I don't. I see a lot of tan, a lot of gray, a lot of shades in between, and every group's got a name, and all they want is for you to say the name." And that's important. That's what we did. Every group's got a name and wants to be recognized. Pollsters call us non-college educated whites. That's the term. Nobody's got a bumper sticker that says I'm non-college educated white and I vote, right? No one has says I'm an average working American. I mean, what's that? What it means is that they don't want to call us who we are, and we matter. It matters to say I'm here with Polish Americans today. I'm here because Italian Americans matter. I'm here. All you got to do is say it. No big deal. No problem. And that's what our ethnic council does. Is it's okay to say it. It's okay to call us who we are, because it matters. And it ultimately, you know, we know our communities well enough to know you come before an audience and say, and I want to say about Italian Americans, you own that community. I mean, they will love you just because you know their name and talk about them. Talk about Ukrainian Americans, especially at this time. Talk about the Eastern European communities and the threat they face. Talk about their name. And they're going to support you because they just want you to know who they are. And that's what we're doing. And I just want to recognize a couple of people here because the role they've played historically. There's Marilyn DiGiacobi, who was our first ethnic outreach person. Stand up, Marilyn. In the Clinton administration, she made a hell of a difference for all of us. And we had a guy who, in a period of time when we were struggling with our ethnic council to figure out where we go and what we do, they started a separate 527. It was Marty Dunleavy, and he ran it very successfully. Marty's here. And I see Jim Rosapep, who was one of the founders of this ethnic council back in the beginning, one of our first co-conveners. And another one of our stalwarts who's putting together ethnic women is Chris Warnke, and she's here someplace in the back. There she is. And but we're going to shift gears because we've got a couple people coming. So if you don't mind, Jim, I'm going to have you and Mari come up now because they've got, this is the part of the program where we're talking about the, oh, I forgot Fadia. Fadia, stand up, Fadia. In 2020, the Biden administration and Jack Hanna, who was former chair of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, Fadia was one of the first staffers hired with Howard Dean's 50-state strategy, both in Pennsylvania. And in 2020, they made a huge difference because the Biden campaign focused us on Pennsylvania and getting out ethnic voters, and we did it. And thank you, Fadia, and thank you, Jack. Now, we're going to talk about tools available to us to get out the vote and to help our communities turn out in this election. And there's nobody more dogged at making this happen than Jim Rosapep. He's been fighting for this for the longest time. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Hey, Mari is here?
Mari's here somewhere. Oh, there's Mari. Hi.
Come on up, come on up.
Mari is the Midwest coordinator for the campaign, for the Harris campaign in Midwestern states in coalitions outreach. And so she's our point person. She was a member, still is a member of the Ethnic Council.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And she was a state representative from Michigan.
So thank you all for being here. We all know this is a long struggle. Some of us have been here for a long time. Many of us are going to be here for a long time. And so we make a lot of progress. We made a lot of progress under Jim and Maureen's leadership. Let me just do a round of applause for Jim Zogby. Talk about dogged. Talk about dogged. Whenever I'm talking to people who active in the Democratic Party but not really kind of in our group, don't know us so well, I talk, well, Ethnic Council. Ethnic Council? I say, Jim Zogby. I said, oh yeah, the Ethnic Council. I get it. And so he's really made a huge difference for our party and for our country. So for many, many years, we have been trying to convert to practical tools what Jim talked about in terms of people want to be seen for who they are. Exactly what Jim said. Most, and I use examples that are from other parts of the world, I have a colleague, I'm a member of the state Senate in Maryland. One of my colleagues in the House is a Dominican immigrant. And she says, the only place there are Latinos is in the United States. There are no Latinos in the Dominican Republic. They're Dominican. There are no Latinos in El Salvador. They're Salvadorian. It's the same thing. They're only Europeans. Well, there's a European Union. I'll give them that. But the fact of the matter is that Nepalis know they're not Pakistani, and Pakistanis know they're not Korean, and Korean knows they're not Japanese. And it's the same, obviously, with our ethnic groups. But unfortunately, the Democratic Party, for much too long, too often, doesn't get it, doesn't see people the way they see themselves. And I got to tell one anecdote, and then I'll get into the practicalities. So yesterday, we had our Italian-American event. And we have a great Italian-American candidate in South Jersey, Joe Salerno. And I met his wife for the first time. And I said, so what's your background? She said, I'm from England. I said, oh, okay. She said, no, I mean, I'm like English immigrant. I came here at 11 years old. And I said, wow, you could be a tremendous asset to the campaign by talking about your immigrant heritage. She said, I never really thought about that. Because we English Americans, think other people think we're not so nice, that we're snooty, that we have the Queen and all that stuff. And she said, that wasn't my family. My family were working class folks who came to the United States for economic opportunity, and they're English. And so I said, that's a story you have to tell, because most people don't tell that story. Because most of us, we Italians, think the English came here, in the 16th century and just stayed. So everyone has a story, and everybody knows their own story. So we have been working for years to get the Democratic National Committee to do micro-ethnic identification on the voter list. As some of you, many of you, I'm sure, have worked with the voter list that the DNC maintains. It generally has big buckets, and the buckets are too big. The Republican Party has been micro-targeting forever. Healthcare companies market with micro-targeting. Financial companies market with micro-targeting. And many of our groups, in the last cycle and other cycles, have gone out and gotten identification of voters by our ethnicity ourselves. Either we paid a commercial service to do it, or I talked to one of our Italian-American folks yesterday who talked about how when he ran for office 10 years ago, he went through by name with his volunteers and just picked out the Italians. And I know lots of candidates who have done that. Well, that's great. God bless everyone who's done that. But it's like moving from, stuffing envelopes to social media. It's a little more efficient. So the good news is, because of the Ethnic Council of Advocacy, Ken Martin, the chair of the Minnesota Democratic Party and the chair of the State Chairs Association, took on the task earlier this year with TargetSmart, who is the contractor to the DNC and the state parties, to run an ethnic dictionary with over 150 ethnicities against the voter file. So today, every state party has access to a voter file which can distinguish Italians from Iranians and French from Chinese. Now, obviously, I can't imagine, because I've seen the 150 list. I'll be shocked if there's any ethnic heritage that is not identified. In my own Senate district, I did this commercially, but the same kind of ethnic dictionary. I know there are 12 Portuguese Americans who voted in the Democratic primary, and I know who they are. And that's the level of detail that we now have. It's available in every state. To be fair, not all the people in all the state organizations and all the coordinated campaigns know it yet. And so one of the things we wanted to do today was to let you know it's there, get your questions about it. Mari's been working really hard in her states and with the campaign generally to educate them about it. And let me turn it over to Mari, and then both of us happy to take questions. Thank you.
Well, way too many water bottles up here. Good morning, Democrats. Oh, you can do better than that. Good morning, Democrats. I'm Mari Manoogian. I am a native of Metro Detroit, and right now I'm serving as the Midwest Political and Coalitions Director at Harris for President, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here as a member of the DNC Ethnic Council and as a representative of the campaign. Before I get started, I also wanted to recognize a couple of other fellow Metro Detroiters who are in the room. Former Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence is in the back. Give it up for her. She was amazing in Congress. She remains an amazing advocate for us. And also former Oakland County Commissioner Nancy Quarles is back there as well. Give it up for Nancy. the best. So just grateful to have my people in the room with me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my role on the campaign. Actually, I'll start with a little bit of how I came to politics. I think kind of everybody gave their sort of origin story. As you can tell from my last name, I'm an Armenian American. There are many Armenian Americans in Metro Detroit, and my family came to escape the Armenian genocide. We put down roots in Detroit. My dad was a lineman, proud utility worker, Union of America representative, and ultimately ended up retiring after working at the National. He was a utility worker for 50 years. So I am a born and bred Detroiter, and my roots are within organized labor, and I think that's an incredibly important pillar, not only of the Democratic Party, but of our ethnics, because so many of our ethnic groups put their roots down in the United States and were part of the labor movement, and then subsequently became part of our party because of it. So enough about me, sort of the top line of like why I come to this work. I think it's really important. As a third generation American, I think it's important to be involved. And for me, it's about using my skills and my talents, having been in the legislature for 2 terms, using all those relationships to bear here at the Harris campaign. And so I want to talk a little bit about the work that we've done so far and about how we can leverage our communities to get more involved in everything that we're doing. So I'm dual-hatted on the campaign. I'm both in the political shop, working with our political and coalitions departments, but I also serve in the battleground states. And the battleground states, which you all know, are the ones that are always our battlegrounds every 4 years, every 2 years if you're counting the congressional off years. And so I work in the Midwest states. So we have my home state of Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and the blue dot in Nebraska, the woo-woo, blue dot. And so we have a bunch of other states as well: North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Nevada, Arizona, and then Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, and the congressional district in Maine as well that also has an electoral vote. So I want to give a little bit of top lines of the energy and support that we've seen since Kamala Harris became the top of the ticket. In Pennsylvania, we saw in our first weekend of action over 28,000 volunteer shifts completed. In Michigan, we had 9,000 new volunteer signups. We have 200 coordinated staff across 50 field offices in the state, 3 of which are in the city of Detroit. We also have offices in Grand Rapids, Oakland, Washtenaw, Kent, and Ingham counties. And in our first week of action as a campaign with the VP at the top of the ticket, we saw 63,000 event signups in Georgia and 40,000 in North Carolina. So obviously you can see through the numbers that we've seen at our events that folks are energized and excited to get involved. Across the battlegrounds, we have over 260 coordinated campaign offices. And I want to give you some comparison numbers here with the other side. I know we don't really like to talk about them, but I want you to understand the importance of what we're doing. In Nevada, we have 13 coordinated campaign offices, and Trump only has 1. In Pennsylvania, we have 36, and Trump has 3. But as you can all see from the polling and the numbers across our battlegrounds, this is still a very tight race. In spite of the fact that we are on the ground and organizing across all of our battlegrounds, keeping the energy and the momentum up is going to be critical to making sure that we are able to win not just my blue wall states in the Midwest, but all of our battlegrounds, and we're able to deliver Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to the White House. So let's talk about how the Ethnic Council can do the work to get involved. I am the Midwest political director. I have 3 other counterparts. I have Jorge, who handles the West, Alon, who handles the Northeast, and Obi, who handles the South. You all can find me through Jim Zogby. Happy to do it. If you haven't already been part of some of our Ethnic Council meetings, please join. And I'm more than happy to make sure you're connected to the correct political director so you're able to join up with your states, the ones that you want to get involved in. If you're not home to a battleground, you can help us by calling into battlegrounds, organizing phone banks for a particular state that you want to support get out the vote efforts in. Now, I know Jim spoke a lot about how we're able to do different kinds of targeting and that sort of thing. I think the best way to make sure that those resources are best utilized is by speaking to those particular states that you want to make those calls in. So I'm more than happy to make sure you're connected to the right people. Currently, although I'm a Metro Detroiter, I do live in Wilmington, so I'm sort of, the way I sort of work on the campaign is I get information and I filter it up and I filter it down so it gets to the right people and we're able to get things done. So I just want to let you all know that I'm a resource. I'm excited and thrilled to be here. I'm also, because at this moment we don't have someone hired on the campaign specifically to do ethnic work, although that is hopefully coming soon, I am hoping to continue to make sure that we're in close contact with the Ethnic Council so all of you feel represented and that you have a voice on the campaign. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your week.
Okay. We have a gentleman here from Target Smart. There he is. Okay. He's the brains behind this. Come on up. I know you're from Target Smart. At least I know that much about you. Thank you for your help.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. I just want to say that, you had mentioned as well that the data that we had worked with ASCC on providing is now available to state parties. I do want to thank, the ASCC and Chairman Martin for making that happen, as well as the DNC staff for incorporating that data. And also, want to highlight that this is the DNC and ASCC have made record investments this year in race and sub-ethnicity modeling, scoring, and predictions this year. As you had mentioned, the file that or data that we're sharing with state parties and candidates and other allies does have over 175 different, sub-ethnicities and religions, as well as language preference and Hispanic country of origin. So there's a lot of granular data in there to help you do the most targeted organizing you can do for your communities. And it's available. Please feel free to reach out to the DNC community tech team to get access to the data. If you have any data specific questions, feel free to reach out to me at Target Smart. We're happy to answer those questions. And yes. I'm Sean Doyle from Target Smart. Was that Ken?
Are you finished?
I don't. Oh, question?
Yeah, question. There we go.
It's available. It's attached to the entire voter file, so you can go down to precinct level if you want to.
Other questions?
The state parties have access to it, so they should talk to their state party voter file manager on how they should access the data directly from them. They should be able to help you pull that list correctly, and so you can make sure your scripts are updated and putting that into Vote Builder, yeah. Yeah, all of the DNC has a wide selection of cell phone numbers they get from from a number of sources, including Target Smart. So that's available, and it's all around. Yeah, the data. Yes, yeah. I mean, the data has been very interesting to look at. We've been looking at different areas, like you had mentioned, like finding out who's a Polish American and finding out who's an Italian American makes a big difference in communities, especially when you're just seeing usually like, oh, this is a white or API community. Being able to break it down even further is really going to help all of our community-based efforts.
Yeah.
Did you use data, is it a dictionary, like are you looking language name structures, or are you using self-identification that people have identified themselves? What's your basis of determining?
It's a data source that we sourced from another vendor that we cleaned up and appended it to the voter file. It is modeled data, so I think it does include some self-reported, but a lot of it is based on names, census block level information, as well as other identifiers that we have. And we've matched it to Target Smart's own internal models, and they perform about 85 to 90% of what we're seeing. So the rate is actually very, very decent.
Other questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just the access part. I'm worried this is Lithuania, right? For example, in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Oh, FADI is the key for everything. So.
So we can compare the list of 10,000 we have to see if it's an accurate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Other questions? There's another hand up, I thought.
In the back.
Is there one back there? I'm sorry.
Yes, in the back there.
Way in the back.
Yes.
There we go. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Genetic data? I don't believe so. I think that is very highly regulated. I think a lot of folks will be hearing a lot about it's called sensitive information that a lot of states are now blocking from being ever used for any type of commercial or outreach purposes. So I think that is one that we don't have. No.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you for all you've done for us.
Thank you.
God bless. Is Mari still here? I guess not. Okay, so you can't ask her a question. You got to catch her later. Let me just wrap this up and then turn it back over to Jim. The good news is the state parties have the data. The bad news is they may not know they have the data. And so that's why we wanted to make a point of it. It is our job in each of our states, when you leave this room, to text your contacts at the state, your state party, and say, I was just in the Ethnic Council meeting at the Democratic National Convention, and I'm told that, that Pennsylvania or Iowa or Michigan, that we have this ethnic-related data. Who do I talk to? When I get back on Monday, how can I access it to start working? And I think what you're going to find is some people are like, terrific, and some people are going to say, huh? And so it's really, really important. This is a very tenacious group, but this is the time we need to be tenacious with the state parties and with the campaigns. The question of getting it down to the municipal level, it's not just about the presidential campaign. It's about the congressional campaigns. It's about state legislative campaigns, this county commissioner campaigns. The state party has all this data, and they have to make it available to all the campaigns. And it may, yes, no, Fadia. Absolutely.
Let me just ask Karen, who's here, who is the counterpart of Mari in the AFDC, which is the Association of State Chairs. She does the Midwest. And so you've been listening to this about the fact that this is something that we'll have access to, but state chairs need to know that they do have access to it. And so can you maybe give us some idea?
Sure. My name is Karen Bradford Coleman. I did not expect to be here right now, but I'm here. I am with the ASDC, that's a lot of acronyms. It's Association of State Democratic Committees. So we work with chairs, vice chairs, and executive directors, and I do overlord the Midwest. So everything from the Dakotas over to Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Indiana. So everything in the middle. So yes, we are aware that they are, and we work with Sean Doyle quite a bit with Target Smart and toiling that data. But one of the things that she was absolutely correct about is that sometimes there is a disconnect really between the types of communities that are on the ground, their needs, versus what the overall messages are. And the challenge is always being able to mesh those things together. And it sounds cliche, but we very much have more in common than we have different. But we do have to take the time to cultivate those relationships with those communities and being able to make sure that their voices are heard. So that is something that the Association of State Democratic Committees does a lot. My vice chair just walked in, Kim Martin, and so he can tell you certainly so much more about that. But yes, vice chairs are aware that that information is there, and they are working hard to do that. I know Michigan is a great example with the work that they do with the Arab American community. So hopefully that answers your question.
question.
Yes, sir.
So is there a handbook or a piece of paper that people can get a hold of explaining so they're talking intelligently to the folks at their state parties?
So what I would say that the thing that you need to do is reach out to your state party first. They have a data director or someone who handles all of their data, and they can help give you those talking points so that you go back to your communities and you're able to speak intelligently to
I'm
that.
asking actually the other way.
Let me do this.
Yes.
Let us work with you.
Absolutely.
Come up with a one-pager that we can send out to everybody in the council.
Okay.
How to do it, who to contact. We can give them the name and numbers of the state chairs or the data people in their states.
Absolutely.
So we'll make that available to everybody, and I think that would be the easiest way to get this done.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Glad to do it. Glad to do it.
Bring your boss up.
I think I'd be happy to do that. Listen, my name is Karen Bradford Coleman. I'm the ASDC Midwest Regional Director, and it is very much my pleasure and my unexpected pleasure to introduce you to my boss. His name is Ken Martin. He is the Vice Chair of the DNC for ASDC, but more importantly, he is the Chair of the Minnesota DFL. He has been doing this work for many, many years, and one of his mentors was the incomparable Paul Wellstone, one of the first campaigns that he worked on, and he's certainly done a breadth of things. He is on the Finance Council for Harris Waltz. He is also the Democratic chair of the state where our next vice president is coming from. So that's certainly a feather in his cap, and he's been making the rounds on that. So I won't let you spend any more time listening to me. It's my pleasure and it's my honor to introduce to you Vice Chair and President Ken Martin.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I'm late. This perimeter was crazy. So are you all having a fun convention so far? All right. Are we going to win in 78 days? Yeah, you're feeling it? Good. Well, look, I just wanted to come and say that I not only have I been a big supporter of the Ethnic Council, I've been working with Jim and others to make sure that we provide resources and help in the incredible work that you're doing to organize voters throughout this country. And, you know, you've heard about the data piece. I really want to thank Ambassador Rosa Pepe and Brenda. There's Ambassador Rosa Pepe, of course. And Brenda, is Brenda here? Oh, there she is, right there. Good. I tell you, you know, they've been really almost like a dog on a bone with this question about data and making sure that we were getting the resources that we have at the DNC out to each of you so that you have the rich data that you can have at your fingertips to do the type of outreach we need to organize ethnic groups throughout this country. You know, Jim and I have talked about this before, and I think, Ambassador, when we were I saw you overseas, I think in Vienna, and we talked about this, right? Which was the importance of making sure we're organizing every single community in our country, right? With specific messages that are unique to that community. And the best way for us to do that is to make sure that we have that database at your fingertips. And so I'm really pleased working with our partners over at Target Smart, Sean Doyle, who you heard from earlier. We, as the Association of State Democratic Chairs, made a deep investment in data to make sure that that data set was available to all of you. We're going to make sure you have the notes on it so that you know how to use it, right? Sean's got that for you. But let me just say this. With 78 days left, we don't have time to waste. So if you have any questions on how to use this, if you need any assistance, the folks at Target Smart, the state parties will help you in this. We want to make sure you guys are equipped with everything you need to do this work. Lastly, let me just say, on a personal note for Jim, my good friend, Jim's been in this fight for many years, along with me and other progressives, to make sure that no one in our broad tent coalition is feeling left behind. That every person matters, every person counts, and it's up to us. All of you are party leaders. Whether you like it or not, the fact that you're sitting in this room, you're now party insiders. Yeah, think about that, right? Your responsibility is to not only represent those voices who aren't in this room today, but to make sure when you leave this convention, you give them hope, you give them a sense that this party is their party too, and we want their voices in the tent. You know, I was thinking about this old saying, Jim. In 1968, LBJ said this to the war protesters then. And if I could be a little crass, forgive me. He said, what's that? I'm just quoting him. That's right. Yes. He said, I'd rather have you on the inside of the tent pissing out than the outside of the tent pissing in, right? So, of course, he's a Texan, you know, a little colloquialism. But the point of that is this. We are a big tent party. We celebrate that. We celebrate our differences. We celebrate the fact that we don't expect ideological purity like the Republicans. We don't drum you out of the party if you disagree. In fact, the difference between our Democratic Party and the Republicans is that we welcome dissent. We welcome debate. We welcome voices from all parts of this country, all over the world, people who just want to make sure that no one is left behind. And you heard our Vice President say this. You heard our Vice President say this, and my Governor, Tim Walz. We have an opportunity right now with this opportunity agenda that they have. There's two values that define us as Democrats: community and opportunity. And the idea of opportunity is to build an agenda that makes sure that everyone has an opportunity not just to survive. That's the bare minimum, surviving. But to actually thrive, to actually get ahead, not just get by. That's what you see Tim Walz, my governor, and Kamala Harris, our vice president, delivering on. And that's what we have to come out of this convention here in the next 4 days, ready to sing the gospel in every part of this country and make sure we're all evangelists for this wonderful ticket. So I'm going to stop preaching right now, but what I would say is Jim's leadership, the rest of the council's leadership, as long as I'm involved with the DNC, and I've been an officer for almost 8 years now, I will continue to support this caucus and this council and make sure that they are resourced the right way so we can all do this work. Thank you for having me. Keep up the good work. Keep fighting. 78 days, we're going to win.
Let me close the loop, Karen and Sean. I'd like to make sure that we get from both of you the toolkit we need so that we can create advocates in each of the states for each of the ethnic communities. Because there's nothing more than I want coming out of this election than, Fadia, what we came out of Pennsylvania with in 2020 when people said it was ethnic voters that made a difference in Erie, made a difference in Northeast. I want it to be said that our communities played a role in winning this campaign, right? And we're the ones who'll do it. We're the ones who'll do it. And we got every reason to do it because of the respect we're being shown. I just want to add something personal on my note as Arab American, because I've been fighting for justice for Palestinians all my life. It's been a hard go. It's been a tough go. Last person to speak on this issue at a Democratic Party convention was me, 1988. That's the last time that issue even got talked about. But what the Harris-Walz ticket did was create a forum for Palestinian voices at this convention that'll be in this hall this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Never happened before. Never happened before. And the difference is that in 1988, I came as Jesse Jackson's deputy campaign manager. He led the fight. The difference this time is that young people in my community and progressives in the Jewish community and black communities and others, they led this fight from the bottom up. And Harris-Walz recognized that and gave us a forum for this issue. That's how inclusive this ticket is trying to be. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And I think that, you know, getting what we're getting in terms of resources from Sean and Ken and the support we're getting from Mari and from you, Karen, we're going to make a difference in this election. We're going to win Michigan, and we're going to win it with Arab American votes, not without Arab American votes. Because I know people are saying that, Jim. I know people are saying that, but they're full of shit. If they think that Donald Trump is going to do anything that is going to be any better than the last time around, I don't know what they're smoking or what they're thinking. Right? I mean, people say it can't get any worse. It can get a lot worse. It always can get a lot worse. And it will be a lot worse because these are really bad people, sorry to say. And the fact is that we're going to put a great team in office, and we're going to be the reason why they're in office, because ethnic voters turned out in great numbers. Thank you all very much. See you on Wednesday morning when Jim Rosapep has a hell of a program put together to talk about Ukraine, Eastern Europe, the threat from Putin, and we're okay. Thank you. And I want to make one last point. Christine, you don't need to come up, but I just want you in place. Again, she's putting together ethnic women. Now, ethnic women for Harris Waltz, let me tell you, we already have ethnic women. It's in the council. You know, but Christine's been putting it together, and I just want her to comment on it. You can do it from there, Christine. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Democrats, all the hard work that you're doing. I'm a delegate from Illinois, so welcome to Chicago.
Yes.
I'm also a local elected official, so we're working really hard every day, talking to all our friends throughout the nation to make sure we get every vote out so that Harris Waltz wins in November. So
And
thank you, Democrats.
just to put in a plug for Mariana, she ran a phenomenal campaign. She's now going to be, fingers crossed, clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County, which I think is the second largest in the nation. And we have all the faith that she will do a phenomenal job. She's a proud Greek American. She's been active in Illinois politics for a long time, and we are just so happy to not only have a Greek American but a female leading the force in Illinois. So, thank you. And then finally, we'd just like to thank you all for coming today, for listening to our speakers. Jim and I are available for any questions or comments, and we look forward to seeing all of you on Wednesday at 9:30. Thank you all.